I started living on my own at 12. I was sitting behind this church, and the church overlooked, like it was on a hill, and it overlooked the school that I was in. And I watched the school bus leave that I would have been on to go take the kids to my neighborhood. And I was crying, and I was sitting behind this church, and I found a piece of glass, and I legit was trying to like cut my wrist. And because I thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to live on the street? Like someone's going to steal me, or something's going to happen. And all of a sudden this voice like kicked in, and like I'd never had anything like this that I can remember before, but it kicked in and it was like, just hold on till you're 18 years old.
Welcome to the Soulful Reminders podcast, your go-to spot for spiritual inspiration, growth, and connection to your true self. I'm your host, Emily Cady. Each week, I invite inspiring guests to share their unique spiritual lessons and insights, helping us all remember who we are at our core. This is more than just a podcast. It's a vibrant community where we'll explore how to unlock our full potential and embrace our essence in every aspect of our life. Life can get busy and overwhelming, but here, we focus on those soulful nudges that remind us of our incredible power. Whether you're seeking wisdom, a bit of encouragement, or simply a moment of inspiration, you're in the perfect place. Grab your favorite drink, get cozy. Let's dive into this journey together because you deserve to shine your brightest. Welcome back to Soulful Reminders. Today, I am so excited to have my friend Tanya here. We have kind of been seeing each other in different classes over the last 6-9 months. She's always has grabbed my attention and my eye, and finally we connected last month, and I'm just so excited to be able to have her here, introduce you to you guys. You're going to connect with her story. You're going to connect with her as an empath and what she's been through. I guarantee you this is going to be a transformational conversation, and I'm just so grateful and excited to have you here, Tanya. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. I'm so honored to be here. This is going to be really exciting. When we were first talking before we started recording, just about the role, or the roles we play, I guess, as empaths, like the path that, gets us here and how difficult it can be inside of all of that. I have so much to say because I am an empathic person and I have been my whole life, but yeah, so thank you. This is going to be a really cool conversation.
Absolutely. I'm just so grateful to have you here and have your willingness to share your story. So can you just share a little bit about yourself and your story so my audience can get to know you?
Yeah, for sure. Okay. So, in my world, what I teach is narcissistic abuse recovery. And, I also go into businesses as a consultant and try to clear up these energies inside of these businesses to have less of a toxic workplace culture and really start to invite, really healthy ways of looking at things and perspectives without being gaslit and manipulated. But I started out with narcissistic abuse recovery specifically because this was my experience. So, it starts all the way back. I had a narcissistic mother, and my narcissistic mother, as soon as she gave birth to me, she put me right into foster care. And so I was born into the foster care system, and I had lived in 7 different homes by the time I was 2. And then I lived in the 8th home from when I was 2 until I was 10. And that family really fought for me, every single year. I'd have to go sit in front of a judge and tell them why I really love staying with this family. And because it's not typical for one foster home to hold on to one child for that long, but they let me. And so, I'll talk a little bit later about spirit in our lives and soul-led stuff and guidance and all of that. So don't forget to ask me that. But for me, he was like the catalyst for what was coming later in my life. He really, my foster father, I always call him my papa or my grandfather if you ever listen to anything else I ever record, because they raised me with their grandkids, right? So we were sort of like, I knew them that way as like my grandparents, but he used to always sit me down and he would really explain to me like what was going on in real terms. Like he never sugarcoated things for me. He used to always say, you're such a lion of a kid, you can take on so much. And I really always could. And I think he was tapping into the empathic piece of me. Like I've always drawn people to me and started listening to people's stories and their issues from like 7 years old. I remember full-grown adults telling me their problems, and I would go home at night not knowing how to process this and be crying at night because I was like, how is that person going to pay their rent and how are they going to get food? And so people had been coming to me for a really long time before I really knew how to hold space. But anyhow, so After that, my mother
A true
marries this.
old soul.
Yeah. After that, my mother marries this man, and I was 10 years old, and he ended up being violent, and he was a pedophile. He was a sexual predator. He was verbally abusive, physically abusive, sexually, all the things. And and so was my mom. My mom did all those things except the sexual stuff, but she basically handed me over to this pedophile on a platter. So at 12 years old, this is kind of graphic. I won't get into too many graphic details, but she beat me up so badly that I thought she was trying to kill me. And so I ended up grabbing $18 that I had stuffed in my mattress, and I was standing at the door, and she said a series of things, but the last thing she said to me was, if you run, I'll find you and I'll kill you. And all I could hear in my head was run. So I did. I opened up the screen door. I ran down the path. My mom had a white picket fence around the house. I had to quickly unlatch that, run for my life. And she, sure enough, was right behind me, chasing me down the street. And I started living on my own at 12. And I was a straight A
12
student.
years old.
I was a straight A student, and I just wanted to get through school. Like, for me, school was so important, and it's where all of my identity was. So without school, I was nothing in my mind, so the piece I really want to hit on here is, 12 years old, I was sitting behind this church, and the church overlooked, like, it was on a hill, and it overlooked the school that I was in. When all of this stuff happened, and I watched the school bus leave that I would have been on to go take the kids to my neighborhood, and I was crying, and I was sitting behind this church, and I found a piece of glass, and I legit was trying to, like, cut my wrist, and because I thought, how am I going to do this? How am I going to live on the street? Like, someone's going to steal me, or something's going to happen. And all of a sudden, this voice, like, kicked in, and like, I'd never had anything like this that I can remember before, but it kicked in, and it was like, just hold on till you're 18 years old. And I thought, oh, hold on till I'm 18. Like, how am I going to do this?
Right.
What am I going to do? And so it just was like, hold on till you're 18. And that was sort of the thing I taught myself, to just, everything's fine. You just have to make it to 18. This is okay. This is temporary. You just have to make it to your 18. And so I did that. And of course,
so you're living on the streets, literally
living on the streets and living in and out
until 18.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Couch surfing, staying in people's places. I guess when this first happened, it was the warmer months. So it was fine for me to sleep under a tree, which I did.
Yeah, because you're Canadian. It's cold.
Yeah. So in the summer, like, warmer months, it was fine. So in the winter months, I mean, picture me knocking at the basement window of one of my friends' houses, begging them to let me in so I could have a place to sleep. So I did that for years on top of years. And then parents would take me in, and then it would all fall apart, and I'd be back living on the street again, still trying to go to school. And then when I turned 16 years old, I was like, now I know I'm out of the foster care system, because I didn't want to go back into it. I'd already lived in a group home. And I was like, I'm 16 years old, which means I can get a job. I can quit school. Nobody can keep me trapped in this system. And so that's what I did. I quit school. And the guidance counselor that I had, he said to me, he was like, this is a bad idea. And I said, well, what's my alternative? I can't keep living like this. This is crazy. I'm physically too big to be sneaking in and out of places now. Like, I need to figure this out. And so he gave me this University 101 textbook, and he's like, here, take this, just please read it. And I looked at him, and I'm like, I've literally been in therapy since I was born. Like, I don't need this psychology textbook, And so he was like, just take it, just take it. So now fast forward, I have an apartment, no furniture. And I got this little.
But you have shelter. You have shelter.
I have shelter and Ichiban noodles. I was like the happiest girl in the world. I had some food, I had shelter. And so I had this book, and I'm sitting on the kitchen floor, and I'm eating these noodles. And this book was like calling to me, and I was like, okay, fine, I'll read it. So I started to open it and flip through it, and I found something really cool that started to happen. So I was 17 at this point. Everything I was reading in this book, I've always taken the TTC or the subway system, the buses, whatever. And so what I would find is people would always tell me their problems, but now they were telling me specific things that I was just learning how to solve the problem for them, like with a real textbook. Goodness. I know. So it was really cool. So I was like meeting people who needed to know exactly what I just read. And I was like, this is,
I love how the universe works.
Yeah. So I started coaching at like 17 years old, which was really cool. And then, yeah. Anyway, so all of this is to say, I went through a lot of stuff, like a lot of chips on my shoulder, a lot of bad people in my life. And one of them, who I was very unsuspecting with because he was so different than anybody I'd ever been attracted to. I was always attracted to the guy who looks like he was probably in jail. He's like super hot and rides a Harley. Like I was always attracted to those kinds of people because I was so caught up in the drama and the chaos and feeling something. I just wanted to feel something. And I learned, through these trigger responses to just find my safety in drama and chaos. So here comes this unsuspecting.
Your whole nervous system was wired for it.
Yeah, like completely nuts, right? So this guy walks into my life. I was 22 and he was 21 and I didn't know anything about narcissism, not like people, regular everyday people. I didn't think of it like that. Yeah, and he walked into my life and we were together for 18 years. And when I got out of that relationship, I realized like what had been going on in this relationship and it was crazy. So, narcissists, they do this funny thing. Do you know anything? Oh, yeah, you do. You know about
Yes, I was married to one.
Right. You're telling me in the love bombing stage when they're first, when we first meet them, they do this really weird thing, right? Where they're like putting you on a pedestal, and they're really intent and they're listening. What they're really doing is information gathering. And while they're information gathering, they're like literally taking notes and putting those notes somewhere to refer to later, but they're just figuring you out. And as they're putting you on this pedestal and they're so sweet and doing all these things for you and they're so engaged, they'll start to take you down a little bit. But then the love bombing comes in and then you're like, well, this is such a great guy. He's just having a bad day. Or this man is like, I've never met someone like this before, so if he's going to be shitty to me, I must have done something wrong. And they start to train us to be like them. Obsessive thinking, don't have any self-worth, can't do anything to completion, can't get my thoughts straight, not good enough for the world. We start to live through imposter syndrome with everything. And the idea is so that they take full control over your mind, who you rely on, what you're thinking, what you're doing, and even go so far with some narcissists to like how you're dressing, who you're hanging out with. So it's like all of it, it's all encompassing. And so when you're in relationships with these people, what you don't realize is they're using all of the things they've learned about you against you, making you think you're in a relationship of a lifetime. And oh my God, I'm the one who's really fucked up here.
Right.
Right. And so I found myself in this relationship. And so all of a sudden, one day, after like so many attempts trying to leave him, I woke up one morning and I was like, I had 2 children. I still have 2 children. I make it sound like I don't have them anymore. I still have 2 children, but I had 2 kids and I was in this relationship. Like literally it was just like, this isn't my life. Like whatever life I'm living here, this is not my life. This is not what I had in mind for myself. I don't know what's going on with him. This is crazy. This is chaotic. This is constant nonstop drama. I can't think straight. So I took the momentum, right? Because with narcissists, we think of leaving often. We try to leave often.
And we can't.
And so I was like, okay, the next time I knew this, the next time I feel the wave and the momentum to get the hell out of here, I'm taking it. I'm just going to take it, like to hell with this. And I'm a really spiritual person. I'm not a religious person, but I was Catholic growing up. And there was this one thing that kept popping into my mind about, you take the first step off the cliff and in faith, the step will be underneath your foot when you land. And then you take the next step in faith. And so what I took that to mean was like, Tanya, look at how much you've gone through. Like, if you could do all of that, you can figure this out, like just go. And my fear, and he really dialed in on this fear was, my mom was like addicted to drugs and alcohol and put me into foster care and had all these abortions. And I have an older sister she put up for adoption that I'll never meet. And, it was just like all this chaos and this weird shit. And so when I wanted to leave him, he'd always point out single moms outside. We'd be in the car and he'd be like, oh, that woman, like, look at her. She looks like she's really struggling. He'd do it to me for 18 years, like always pointing out my fears. So when I wanted to leave, I was like, I can't be a single mother, So when I finally decided to go, my kids were 5 and 10 years old. And I was just like, that's it. The kids and we just left. I got an apartment, I gave them the master bedroom. I took the den and I was like, that's it. Like, I'm just going to make it work. I've got to have faith in myself here. I have to believe that I can do this because this is just crazy. I was like, whatever's going to happen to me out there is going to be 10 times better than what's going on in here.
Right.
Yeah.
I want to just share really quickly because when I was married for 14 years, I think it was 14 years. No, I don't think I was with him for 14 years. But 7 of those years I wanted out and I could not get out. And I've always kind of been like, why didn't I have the strength and the courage to get out? And you just really nailed it. Like how they will gaslight us, manipulate us to see like our weaknesses, our worst case scenario.
Yeah, they make us feel like we can't do it without them. But the
Yeah.
funny thing is, the whole time you're in this relationship with them, you're doing everything. It's like to make you believe that you are not capable of doing things without somebody else, looming over top of you, giving you the direction,
Yeah.
which is really shitty. But I really do believe for empathic people, it's like we're empathic people feel, and I'm not an expert in this, but my sense of myself, like we feel so much around us constantly, that it's easy for us to get really lost and caught up in other people's feelings. It's really important for us to understand that we need to put boundaries in place for ourselves, for like how we're going to allow other people to be in the space. Until you learn how to hold space properly, those people are getting into your thoughts and your thinking. Remember, like I was saying, when I was 7 and 8 years old and I had all those, like thoughts about all these people, like that's invasive. Like I shouldn't be, first of all, thinking about them outside of that space, but also they shouldn't be able to get into my thoughts like that either. So putting these boundaries for us, because really what I think empaths are is that we're light workers and we're meant to work in shadow stuff. That's why we're so like, we
Yes,
attract
I love that.
yeah, right. We attract all this toxic, all these toxic energies. And I think it's because we're meant to help people. We're not meant to play there. We're meant
I
to.
have to just share. I had this visual, or I was in meditation and I was talking to my guides the other day, and they had me put my hands on my heart and they said, ask your soul what you're here to do. And then I got this visual of like a full moon, and it's the dark night, but the moonlight is like bringing light into the darkness. It's exactly what you were just saying.
Oh, okay. So
Working
that was for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. That was for you. Like, this is honestly like, this is why these kinds of conversations are so important. For the validation that we're getting from our spirit guides, we have to learn how to pay attention to that, especially as empaths. I don't know if you've ever been taught how to do this, but when you learn how to make like associations with like everyday things, like for example, I don't know, this color, what does a microphone represent? Like even this little thing that I've got, this little enamel hummingbird, like all of these things that we like colors, numbers, all of that stuff, anything that's, that we're seeing all the time, polka dots, like gold jewelry. When we start making associations, like for what those actually mean, our spirit guides will give us symbols and signs and we'll see them in the world. And it's almost, well, it's not supposed to be used as like an inner GPS system, like a guidance system to get us through, like navigate this physical world so that our spirit can manifest through this physical being, right? Through this physical body. But yeah, it's interesting. That's what we're supposed to do, but anyway, in the space,
I like the GPS, the spiritual GPS, because it is, I wake up in the middle of the night and I see 333, or, it's like, I'm always seeing those angel numbers.
So I was reading about this the other day, and when we're seeing the same series of numbers popping up all the time, it's meant to mean that your spirit guides are with you in that moment and to really pay attention to what you're asking for.
Okay. Yep. Yeah. I will start to pay closer attention. I know they're with me. I'll just start paying closer attention to what I'm asking for. And then I know what some of the numbers mean. So.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. But anyway, so this is where I think empaths have to be really careful about, like in the shadow stuff, which is to me the lower vibration of the third dimension, right? Like the third dimension is where, people who haven't woken up yet live. The third dimension is driven by ego and, out of control emotions and needing validation and acceptance and approval, and really just like using the outside circumstances as a navigation system for what's wrong with us. And that's not the point. So for empaths, light workers working in the shadows, we're meant to be in the third dimension, but we're not meant to be of the third dimension. And it's important to make that distinction, because we are like we're like the light in the dark. Everything is attracted to that. And so with that, we're going to get all these toxic people, but to remember
that at age 7, you're attracting all these people telling you they're adults.
Yeah. And as a manifesting generator, my entire life, I've had people project onto me. I'm a 5/1. I've had people project their shit onto me my whole entire life, not understanding the spiritual path here and knowing that my outside circumstances are really just there to show me what my inner thinking is,
Mm.
which I didn't know that. Right. So it's interesting,
Can
but
you repeat that? I think that's a really important statement that you just said.
yeah, our outside circumstances, 1,000,000%. If you think of yourself as the builder of your own reality, the creator of your own reality from moment to moment, like second to second, the outside circumstances of your life are just meant to show you where your thinking is at.
Mm.
So when we look at our bank account and we see that we're not doing as well as we want to be doing, that's not meant to show you that you're not worth it or can't do it or that you're stuck. It's meant to get you into creative thinking. How do I get myself out of this situation? Oh, your puppy.
She's a wild one today. Normally she's totally chill, but today she's a little wild. Sorry.
But that's good. But yeah, so that's like when we're living, especially for empaths, this is like the funny thing. We're taught through the third dimension, like through the conditioning of society and family and all of that, that we're supposed to use our five senses to navigate the world. That's not true. Especially empathic people, especially light workers, who are here to do big things, in the world and have massive impact. We are meant to be using our higher faculties, which means that we cannot be in, fear and creativity at the same time. That's not, those two things don't work. It's like having one foot in the third dimension and one foot in the fifth dimension. It's just not, it's too wishy-washy. You can't put a finger on it.
So how do you help your clients navigate being in the 3D, doing your job, but being able to not fall into the fear? Because like right now, there is so much fear as the old structure is crumbling. And we're like on these two timelines, the 3D and the 5D, right?
Yeah.
So how are you doing it yourself or guiding your clients? If you can give us some tips to help us keep us out of the fear and in the creative phases of our life.
Okay, for sure. So I work with women who are high performing women. So they're either in business or in business for themselves, or they're entrepreneurs, what have you. So they've done a lot of work. By the time they meet me, they understand that they're in something, like they're building something for themselves, but they're stuck, they're plateaued. So the thing that I teach them, because we attract, the things that we've gone through, right? So I attract a lot of women who've been through narcissistic relationships and all kinds of trauma. One of the things we need to remember is if we're going to use the outside circumstances as a measure of our thinking, what we need to realize is that the third dimension of, like all of the needing validation, acceptance, and approval, that's not real. First of all, that's an old construct attached to an old paradigm. And so if we want to get out of that, we need to not be thinking from where we are right now. We need to be creating the future self that we're stepping into, and we need to be making all our decisions from that energy. So it's about getting into this energy of like, who am I becoming? So if I have like a big goal and a big dream, and right now my next thing is I've done so many interviews and teaching like this. I've spoken in front of 1 million women worldwide, like I've done it all from like my computer. So now my next big thing is to get on physical stages and start like going around the world, traveling, writing, I'm writing my solo book right now, so it's like I'm doing this next level stuff. Goals are not supposed to be things we already know how to do. They're supposed to be scary. They're supposed to stretch us so that we get into, like, I don't know, we're supposed to always be in a growth period. We're never supposed to not be in a growth period. We can have rest periods, but we're supposed to always be growing and having experiences so that our soul can have the spiritual development and growth it needs. That means pain, and that means sadness, and it means all of those other things, but it's how we look at it, right? So in knowing that this is my goal, is to be on stages, then when I'm visualizing myself in these new scenarios that I haven't done yet, I want to make it so real. So I'm going to use this. I know these days, if I'm speaking on stage, I probably will have like a headset, but this is old school. So when I hold this in my hand, like the microphone in my hand, what I'm doing when I'm doing that is, I close my eyes and I'm getting the sensation for what it feels like to hold that very cold microphone in my hand. And then in my visualization, I'm seeing it only through my eyes. I'm not seeing it like I'm watching myself in a movie. I'm seeing it through my own eyes. I'm on a stage. There's, 5,000, 10,000 people in front of me. I'm seeing it through my own physical experience. It's like if you can imagine I'm climbing a ladder and I can see my hands grabbing the ladder as I'm climbing it. It's like that. And so while I'm in that state visualizing, and I do this all day long, what I'm doing is I'm getting the feeling of what it is to have achieved the goal. I'm getting into the feeling, like the physical sensation of what it means to have achieved that already. I'm making all my decisions in this moment right now from her, from that energy, because I don't ever want to be making decisions as me right now in this world right now, because the thinking that got me here is not going to be the thinking that gets me out of here. I need to hold on to something tangible. I need to be putting my higher faculties at work so that I'm moving in the direction of my soul's purpose and the things that are calling me. I can't do that if I'm all caught up in the third dimension. So to answer your question, how do I work in the 3D but still stay in the 5D? That's how I do it. And we're human, right?
So
So we're
in
still,
that, I love this example though, because being on stage is what the number one fear for most
yeah.
people, right? So you're dealing with fear, but you're using creativity to overcome it. And just,
Okay, so you want to know the thinking behind that? So
yes,
someone
absolutely.
explained this to me once. They're like, okay, do you know how Olympians set themselves up for for success? They have 4 years to like really start training. They've got all the training before that, but 4 years to really go in before the next Olympics, right? And so I was like, tell me. I always want to know like how people do things and how they think, right?
Right.
So the idea is that they're trained to, if you think of like a downhill skier, they're trained to run that ski, that whole jump, like the whole, what is it called? The track, we'll call it the
Yeah.
track. They're like trained to see it in their minds and do it over and over and over and over and over 400 times. So by the time, because our brain can't tell the difference between something we're imagining and something that's happened, our brain doesn't know how to differentiate like that. And because we see in pictures, it really does serve us to be doing these visualizations so often where we're in it, we're doing it, it's already happened, I already have this, it's already done so many times, so that by the time we actually physically do the thing, it's like the 401st time we've ever done it. So of course your brain knows how to do it. You just have to get out of the way.
Mm.
Just let your brain
So
do it.
good.
Just let yourself
So
go.
good.
So yeah, so this is what I teach. And then of course now my clients and I were in it and we're brainstorming and we're doing all this stuff and we're making these great big moves, right? Because it's in the action that we take. So it's like these great big moves from our future self. So it makes it so much easier to do because I'm not doing it from scared Tanya. I'm doing it from Tanya who's already done it a million times. It gives me the confidence and the
She's
power.
bold.
But then my clients and I were sitting there and we're like, narcissists who?
Yeah.
They're no longer even in the picture because we're closing the gaps, of self-worth and not knowing if we're good enough. Like those things are, and I made a note here about the associations we make. When we keep, and tell me if I'm bouncing around too much here, but when we keep telling ourselves the same story over and over and over again, my mother beat me. My mother gave me over to a pedophile, a narcissistic man as well. My mother treated me like this. She acted like I was worth nothing. If I'm telling myself that on repeat, then my body is keeping that trauma alive that died when I was 12. You know what I mean? Like it stopped when I was 12 years old. It's my thinking that keeps it alive. And so I always say, like after narcissistic relationships, we do need to focus on self-worth and we do need to close those gaps
Oh,
of
100%.
giving away our power, but also to understand that these constructs only still exist because of the associations we make and what we're making those things mean.
Right. Isn't it fascinating, the human mind, because how powerful you are to run and just take your life in your own hands at such a young, vulnerable age.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like the human mind is thinking, I mean, the trauma is real and the trauma is in our DNA. So I'm not saying it's not, but our human mind stays in that pattern rather than just going, oh my God, I'm amazing. I'm amazing. I can't believe I did this.
Right? I just got
Like,
off of a call with a client right before I got into the podcast interview with you. And we were talking about that. And I was like, the way that we've been trained and conditioned by a narcissist is to be like them. And narcissists don't like themselves. It's why they have this big, huge image of grandiosity that they want the whole world to see when they look at them. Because if they really reveal their true selves, they feel like I'd be a loser. No one will love me.
yeah, which is really sad.
Which is really sad
It's really
because
sad.
narcissistic people have a lot of survival skills that could work in their favor, just like empathic people have a lot of survival skills that can work in our favor if we learn how to work them properly. And we learn how to like look at this life, that we've been given as a gift, and to understand that everything is a lesson. But I digress. Like, narcissists will really train you to not like yourself specifically, so that you can't achieve, you can't do the things that they can't do, so it's important for us to understand that and be aware of it, and really fight the resist, resist the desire. It's like this deep desire to fill our life with things that we don't need, because it's hard to be alone after a narcissistic relationship, because we don't want to admit that, we didn't necessarily know what we were doing, or we don't want the world outside to know, that we went through this, because what does it mean? What are we making it mean? That I'm not as well put together as everybody thinks I am. And oh my God, my whole life's going to fall apart. Like, it's the associations and the things we make it mean. So yeah, we work on that stuff, but that becomes the smallest thing when you are in action and you're learning how to rewire your thinking and really get the energy and the momentum under you of like, I can do this. I'm meant for a bigger life than this.
Right.
Oh, yeah, especially when you're empathic, because you're truly here. You're feeling all of those things because you're supposed to. You're supposed to do something with all of them. Like I realized one day, I don't know, I had a big chip on my shoulder for the longest time when I was younger, and I was really, really mouthy and
rightfully so. You've been through a lot.
Really rebellious and all of those things. And, someone, I can't remember who it was, but they either said it to me or they gave me the line to think this way. But it was, have you ever considered that maybe all of your experiences are not for you? And I was like, what does that mean? What do you mean not for me? I went through them. And so the train of thought, like the way I started to think about it was like, oh my God, everything I've been through, I've been given that because I could already handle it.
Right.
But it was supposed to be there so that I have a body of experiences to work from, so I can help other people.
100%.
And when that landed, everything changed. All the associations I made with all of that stuff, because I thought, I'm damaged, I'm broken, no one's going to love me. I'm supposed to be by myself. Like that was the worst thing in the world, which I don't think it is. I like alone time a lot.
Yeah, I know. It's wonderful.
It was like all of the associations I was making, right? So when that clicked in, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm on this earth to do something bigger. And then I started my spiritual practice like 6 years ago. And that's when it really has taken shape for me to be like, oh my gosh, now I could own that space. Yeah.
So good. So good.
Isn't that crazy, right? It's
so
amazing.
Empowering, that shift of thought.
That's it. It gave me so much power, because I started to see that, I'm guided and I'm supported and there's nothing to fear.
So this morning I was reading, I just kind of randomly asked my guides, like, what do I need to hear today? And I open up and I read this. Let me grab my glasses if I can find them.
I do that all the time.
I can't read. It says, one positive statement of good is more powerful than 1,000 negative thoughts. Two positive statements of good are more powerful than 10,000 negative thoughts. So that person who gave you that way of thinking of, you experienced this to help others. It wasn't happening to you, it was happening for you so you could help other people, right?
Yeah. And also like
shifted that.
Yeah. And to compound on what she just said too, like we have to really pay attention to what we're focusing on, because if I'm focusing on what's lacking and what's missing all the time, that compounds by like 100 so fast, just like that. But if I focus on what's going right, the gifts that I've been maybe taking for granted, thinking, well, if I can do it, everyone can do it, instead of understanding my superpowers lie in the things I'm most afraid people to know about me, or, to hear me say, like all the things that have been squashed by a narcissistic relationship. When we start to realize that we should be in the thoughts of what's working and what's happening for me, and like that I'm actually a big fucking deal. And that space, and all the people who tried to take that away from me, maybe they were just wanting it for themselves and couldn't have it. And that's got nothing to do with me. So I give that back. If I can say one more thing on that book, on that line, is to remember that, like, this is why coaching is so important, because it's like one person thinking it is so powerful. If you're staying in the positive and the moving forward and focusing on what's working, two people doing it together is super powerful, and so you're holding space for your clients, right? It's amazing.
I love that. And it's true.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is like coaches and mentors can see what we can't see within ourselves. And they help us believe that we have it.
And that we can get there faster than doing it
Yes. We
ourselves, you
don't
know?
have to do it by ourselves. Yes.
No.
I tell you, the best investments I've ever made is by hiring coaches in my life. I mean,
Always. I
yeah.
always have a coach. I have a spiritual
Yes.
coach and I've got a business coach. And the reason that I always have coaches is because, like, why do I want to reinvent the wheel and keep doing it the slow, long way? I think the last thing, if we're talking about narcissism with empaths, right, which is usually the case, it's usually a narcissistic person with an empathic person, just to remember, on a spiritual level, I believe 100 million%, I know that's not a real percent, but I believe with everything inside of me, that the soul contract between a narcissist and an empath is really to get us on our path. Like they really are the catalyst for most of us to get us onto the proper path, to learn how to get through all of those fears and how to use fear, as, something to build off of instead of something to run away from. So I really do want to, just say, like, I do believe we need to keep them away from us. First of all, they're a very toxic, dark energy. But in the relationship, like that contract between the two, that's what it's designed to do. It really is designed to be your mirror and to show you, get out of this. You're supposed to be doing something else. You have all these gifts that you're not using. Get out of the fear, learn to run toward fear because it'll show you exactly what you need to take care of first, and then just get it done. And that's the whole point of these relationships. So we don't want to go through too many of them, because if you're going through narcissist after narcissist, it's because you still haven't got the lesson and you're still not doing the thing you're supposed to be doing. So that's the whole point to those relationships. So I don't ever want to go through another one of those ever
No.
again. I
No.
also don't want to be repeating this life with the same narcissist in my life in the next, incarnation, because I didn't get it in this lifetime. So I take that very seriously.
Yeah, it's interesting. The client I saw right before you, we had this exact same
Oh,
conversation.
did you?
And the work that I do is I actually go into past lives and parallel lives and clear the DNA from that
Oh,
trauma.
no way.
And I break the soul contracts with those narcissists that are resurfacing. They haven't learned the lesson. So
Wow.
the contracts can't be broken unless if, the person has learned the lesson, the life lesson, because it keeps repeating in the different lives. And this person had learned the life lesson. So we were able to break the soul contracts and the soul ties for her. But it was
Yeah.
the exact same conversation that we just had. And it was really powerful that so that she can run towards fear, like you just talked about. Whereas before she's so paralyzed, she couldn't. But being
Yeah.
able to clear out that trauma that's been stored for lifetimes and it's stored in our DNA, it really does hinder us.
It really does. Karmically speaking, we're always clearing karma, creating karma. It's just important to remember the dynamics of these human relationships are not the real thing. The soul is having this human physical experience because that's what we incarnated to do. We incarnated to have this spiritual growth that comes with this low vibration, right? So it's fascinating to me, when I started to see it through that construct, like through the spiritual eyes of this and not just the human self. I started to see there's something bigger at play here. And as empaths, we're meant to be doing bigger work. We're not supposed to be getting caught in chapter 2 of this book and not being able to move from that chapter, like, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And the
I love what
biggest
you
key,
do.
yeah, the
Yeah.
biggest key is understanding the life lesson and being grateful for the narcissist to help us learn it.
Yes,
And so
ma'am.
you're not the victim, you're actually like grateful.
Well, because it ends up being a gift.
It is
But
a gift.
it
Yes.
takes, like it's hard to hear, for anybody who's listening to this and you're just going through it, it is really hard to hear that. That's like, you'll come into that knowing at some point, but that is really the whole point to this. It's hard to be grateful for someone. Like my narcissist in my life is still taking me to court all the time, lies and plays games, and it's all this stuff. Like I'm still like I represent myself now. So, like it is, I can handle it. Like I can hold space for this too. But my point is I could be looking at it like, oh my God, like what a fucking asshole. Like I can't believe this guy is all over me all the time. But I don't look at it like that anymore because I see someone who is stuck and lost in his own thinking. Like when I was saying we are the creators of our reality, that's literally what they do. They're in their heads 100% of the time thinking, what has this person done to me? What is this person doing to me now? What is this person going to do to me? And they create these scenarios in their mind and react to those scenarios like they're real. And so this is how they keep themselves stuck in this loop, and we look at it through logic and reason, but we can't do that with narcissists because they're so emotional and they're all over the place. They're so super unpredictable, so the point is just to understand what it is you're dealing with and to know that that is their own loop. That's not for us.
No, it's not.
No. Mm-mm.
It's interesting because my husband actually ended up passing away a few years after we divorced. And I am also a medium, and he's come to me a few times since passing. One time he came to me through a medium. It wasn't directly, it was like right after he passed. He came to me through a medium and he said, I had no clue how how did he put it? I don't remember. Like he squashed
How he made you feel.
And he realized, like he said something about how bright of a light I am and the important role I have here on earth. And he was like so apologetic.
Wow. Well, because without the shadow on top of him, remember, this is a very low dimension. Like this is a very thick and heavy third dimension.
Right.
So when they're stuck in that,
yeah,
when they're stuck in that and they're looped in that, and that's all they know, and they just keep doing it to themselves.
Right.
I mean, remember I said before, I don't feel like fear and creativity can live in the same space, right? So it's like they're stuck in the fear. That's so sad to me, so I have empathy and compassion, but from a distance. You can stay
100%. Yes, it has to be from a distance, because as empaths, we didn't make it from a distance at the beginning.
No, I know.
We made their problems our problems, right? That's what I did.
But that's fascinating. Thank you for sharing that with me. That's really interesting because as soon as we leave this dimension and all the fears and the heaviness of all of that is gone, I had a near-death experience when I was 18. But from all the other NDEs that I've like researched and looked at, this is what happens. You are made to feel what you've put other people through.
Yeah. So that you go through the life review.
Right?
Yeah.
Wow, look at that.
So when he came to me on that time, he hadn't gone through the life review yet, I don't think. He just realized it was like he started to see how he dimmed me and squashed me. But then when he went through the life review, that was another visitation I had with him, and it was pretty intense.
What happened?
Can you tell me? He woke me up in the middle of the night, and he was like right above me, and his energy was really heavy and depressing. And that was like 2 a.m. or something. I was like, whoa. And I'm like, you have to get out of here. This energy is awful. I don't want this. You're disturbing my sleep. You don't belong here. You need to leave. So he left. And I said, I'll meet with you at 10 o'clock in the morning. So I met with him at 10. I invited him in and I met with him. And he wanted to apologize because he felt the pain, the life review of feeling the pain 10 times stronger than what he put me through. So he was apologizing for all the pain that he had caused me. And then he wanted me to connect with his son. And it was so weird. Like literally a few minutes later, his son called me, which he has son called me in like over a year or something after at that point. So
he made it happen.
Yeah. He's like, I want to go to lunch. Can we meet? And I was like, yes, we'll meet. But I ended up sending him off with a spirit guide to help him work through his trauma that he had to go through. He had trauma, and I was like, I'm not here to help you anymore, but you have a spirit guide. So I sent them off, and they walked off together, and he comes back every once in a while to say hi, but not very often. So,
wow. Well, we pick these parents, right? Like we pick the parents. Like we don't necessarily pick all the scenarios and obstacles we're going to go through. That's our growth. That's for our learning. So we picked it.
Yeah.
We picked these partners,
Right.
I imagine it in this funny way. There's this book, what is it called? It's a kid's book. Soul of the Sun. No, that's not right. I can't remember the name of it. Neil Diamond Walsh wrote it, I think. But anyway, the whole idea is that like okay, so let's say you and I are, we're souls. We
Mhm.
haven't incarnated yet. And we're deciding that we're going to be soul contracts that get each other to the place we're supposed to go. Or maybe that's your job to do for me. And so you're like, okay, but I might have to do some like crazy shit to get you there. And I'm like, do it. I got it. I'm ready. I want it. I want this growth. This is why we're doing this. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. And you're like, please don't hate me. Please don't forget.
Yeah.
I'm here in your life for a bigger reason, even if I get lost in the weeds and all that other stuff. So we're supposed to know this on this bigger level,
I know.
that these narcissists are, yes, in the physical world, they're horrid creatures to deal with. They're obsessive. They don't let go. They don't leave you alone. It feels like stalking, and it feels like harassment, and it's all of these lower third dimension things. But on a spiritual level, this is a soul that's lost in this shadowy place. It's not for me, but also I don't need to have anger or hatred or any of those things, because why would I? It's not me
Well,
who
yeah,
feels.
you learned your life lessons. And that's all that it's like, thank you. I got my life
That's all
lessons.
you're.
I look
That's
at
what
how
you're left with. Yeah, thank
you're
you.
such a beautiful, powerful woman here to help other people that are in similar situations. Give them the strength and the courage to navigate their life without being, you know, guided or misled by somebody, so that they
Yeah.
can learn lessons much quicker than they would have to on their own, because there's no reason to have to go through so much trauma.
Oh my God, there's not. And then, there's soul families too. We all belong to soul
Yeah.
families. And I really do believe that that's what we're doing right now, is finding each other. And, like you and I, we
Mm-hmm.
probably belong to the same soul
Oh
family in the
yeah,
sense.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So how we
Uh-huh.
found each other, and then we're meant to be doing this work and
Yeah.
bringing more light into the shadow work. So yeah, it's interesting. Like there's so much that we don't consider and think about, like I'm sure your audience is all caught up with all of this stuff, which is great. There's just so much we don't think about that's going on in this spiritual place, that really what we're left with at the end of the day when we start chiseling away at all of that is, this is my reality that I'm creating. I might as well just see what I can do and go as far as I can go, and
Exactly.
just have this joyful, abundant, rich in every way life where I've moved through the fear. I'm ascending vertically. Like I'm supposed to do this.
I
Yeah.
really have a strong feeling for you, if you don't mind me tapping into your energy. Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
That you seriously had, like, I don't know, I'm keep seeing the number five lives to live out your karma,
Hmm.
to get to becoming, like, I don't know if it would be a spirit guide or whatever, to the next level ascension. And
Hmm.
you in the soul go, and before you came in, you said, just pile it on it all in. I just want to live out all my karma in this life. I really feel like that you did that.
I feel that too.
Okay, so that's confirmation. Yeah, and
Because
your guides are like, "Are you sure that that's a lie? We could no, give it to me. I can handle it. You can handle it. You've handled it.
I
You're
have handled
amazing."
it. Oh, thank you. I feel the exact same way. That's so funny that you said that. That's exactly how I feel. That's like great validation for that. Because I've always thought that, like, I've gone through so much stuff that
Yeah,
not
more
very
than
many.
I think anyone I know.
Yeah,
And I
like not
mean,
a lot of
we've all
people are.
been through a lot, but you've been through a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? And I've always thought, like, nobody can relate to me. How am I supposed to like navigate the world? And that's when I realized I'm in the third dimension. I'm not supposed to play there. I'm supposed to be working there.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And you have all these different experiences that people can pull from, these different aspects of
Wow.
deep rejection, you know,
Yeah.
and then dealing with toxic relationships because you don't know your own worth. There's so much there.
There's so much. Thank you for saying that. That's so
Yeah.
sweet.
Absolutely.
Thank
Well,
you.
I kept hearing it. She's like, I kept going. They keep saying she's taken on all the karma, so she can ascend. So,
Yeah. I've been told so many times in readings that this is my last life, my last
oh
incarnation.
my gosh, that is so great. I keep telling my
Oh,
guides, please, this is the last one. Last. I believe that for you
you're all
100%. And that's where you're going to become a spirit guide.
Yeah, good. I'd love it. I'm a good
Yeah.
guide.
Well, you already are a walking spirit guide already.
Yeah, I think so too. It's interesting, right? Like when we can really put it into perspective and see it through like the soul eyes and not the human eyes.
Right.
Well, yeah, not see it through our human. That's what I always, how I refer to it with my clients. You're in your human too much. We're in your human too much. We need to like
Um,
be in your soul, let the soul lead. It's
yes.
interesting. Mm.
We could go on and on and on.
I would love to come back another time if you want to do it.
Yes, I would love that. Okay, when you launch your next course, let's plan on having you come back.
Okay, for sure. I would love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were asking me before where people can find me. I run a 3-day challenge often. So, always go to Tanya-Dubé.com and you'll find whatever is the thing that I'm doing. And that's really a good way to actually, I can send your listeners to this thing that I created, this free 3-piece. It's a 3-part private podcast that you can listen to all about reclaiming identity after narcissistic abuse. It's free.
Oh, yeah, I want to hear
Um,
that.
but you'd go to tanyadubé.com/identity. And that's how you
Okay.
can sign up and get into my world so
I'll
that you
make
can.
sure the links are below too.
Okay,
That's
cool.
great.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. And do you how do you specifically, if you want to touch on how you help your clients?
Yeah. Well, all of the stuff that I taught you guys today, like all about the visioning and it's all about identity and moving into this next phase of who you are, through the eyes of like the soul led journey. But we have to remember our soul is here to have a physical human experience. We're meant to be humans. So we're
Mm,
meant to feel the human stuff, but we're supposed to use that as a tool. So
mm,
I teach women how to like start visioning out and start moving into this new energy, creating her life now from having already achieved it. It's just big action. It's so much fun. You get lost in it because if you're so used to focusing on what's not working for so long, and then you get into this work of working only with what's working and then visioning it out to what's possible, like things you never even thought were possible for your life, tapping into that energetic frequency of abundance and manifesting. And oh, I love this work.
so powerful, so powerful.
So much fun.
So important right now. We need people like you helping all of us navigate these uncharted territories that we're currently in.
Yeah, right. Because why do we want to be in that construct?
We don't.
No, no,
It's
we
not,
don't.
yeah, it's not working.
And
So,
there's so much good on the other side of this, right? That's the other
so
thing. We
much.
don't know what we don't know. So you got to
Mhm.
tap into the energy of the people, who have already got there and done it and just figure it out. Just do it, but don't do it alone because you don't know what you don't know. You don't know how to pull yourself into this new space and hold the frequency. But oh my gosh, is it
Well,
ever
and it just
rewarding?
takes so long.
It takes so long and your life is so different when you do this work. It's
Hmm.
just like all the gifts that you have that have been squashed down inside of you now are tools for expansion. It's just so different. Like I don't know. My life right now is the dream I was dreaming of when I was crying on that bathroom floor, stuck in that relationship 9 years ago. Like that's the point. You're supposed to be moving into this whole other version of you. That's the point to this existence. We're meant to have as many experiences as we can,
Mm.
but we need clean energy to do it, you
Yes,
know?
100%. Yes, the lower vibrations, it's just impossible to get there. So it
Yeah.
helps you. So I love it. So
Thank
do you
you.
have any last messages for, say, there's somebody in the audience right now that just is like where you were 9 years ago that needs to hear a message from you?
Call me. That's what I always say. You need me in your ear. Yeah, my last message is, just to know that you can bet on yourself, that you're here for a reason. You wanted this, and so you might not be able to see the forest through the trees right now because you're in it, but just to know that this is literally, you are exactly where you're supposed to be. How you decide to think and feel and act beyond right this moment right now is going to shape your reality. So it's like so super important to understand, like I had to tell myself, I can bet on me. I can bet on me. If I can bet on anyone, I can bet on me. And I didn't believe it, but I looked for the proof of my life for, where I was before and how I pulled myself out of so many things. I was like, Tanya, if anyone knows how to do this, you know how to do this. Like, get it together. Let's go now. Right. And so I jumped into the momentum of that time. I knew it was going to come again. I promised myself the next time I feel like it's time to leave, I'm doing it, come hell or high water, I'm out of here. And I rode that momentum and I just didn't look back. I do a lot of like mirror work. Go talk to yourself in the mirror and be like, never again. You do not look back. Now you are looking forward. What do you want? Who are you now? You got to figure all this stuff out, but you'll get there, but there's nothing for us in toxicity. There's nothing for us back there. Everything is waiting if we go forward. Right. So yeah, I hope that lands, because that was huge.
Yeah. That gave me goosebumps.
Oh,
that's so good. Thank you.
This is so nice. Thank you for having me here.
Oh my gosh, I so enjoyed this conversation. I wish I met you when I was in the middle of it 9 years ago. we were
everybody
together.
Everyone always says to me, I wish I met you at the beginning.
Yeah. So, but we both got through it.
We both got through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you're doing great work. I love the work that you're doing with women.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's, it's my soul calling, and it's the only thing that, it's funny, this morning I was talking to my guides. It's the only thing that actually makes me feel like I fit in here on earth. I've never felt like I fit in. And I bet you feel that same.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when we're talking to just anybody, when we have these gifts, it's different than when people need us and they're looking for us and they finally find us.
Yes.
That's a whole other thing, right? Like, I could talk about that for another hour.
We'll definitely have you back.
Yeah.
So I know my audience is going to love you. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of Soulful Reminders podcast. I hope you're feeling inspired and empowered by the incredible insights we shared today. Remember, every story and lesson we explore is a beautiful reminder of the immense potential that resides within you. As you continue on your journey, take these soulful nudges with you. Embrace your true essence and actively work towards unlocking your full potential in every area of your life. If this episode resonated with you, I would love for you to subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. And don't keep this goodness to yourself. Share it with others who could use this little reminder too. Until next time, keep shining your light. Remember, you're not alone in this journey. Together, we can uplift and inspire one another to live fully and authentically. You got this.